Posteriormente les vamos a invitar a salir a tomarse una segunda fotografía grupal ya con estas autoridades en la escalinata donde fue tomada la fotografía el primer día del encuentro. Al término de la fotografía les pido también regresar de inmediato a este salón, no habrá receso de café en ese momento para iniciar propiamente con la ceremonia especial de clausura. Agradecemos anticipadamente su comprensión. Bien. Yo sé que no necesita ninguna presentación, no obstante, quiero dar la bienvenida a María de la Paz López, quien, como saben, es Directora General de Institucionalización de Perspectiva de Género en el Instituto Nacional de las Mujeres y modera esta primera sesión 6 sobre cooperación para el desarrollo de capacidades en estadísticas de género en el marco de los ODS. Bienvenida, Paz.
Muchas gracias. Muy buenos días tengan todas, todos. Vamos a correr un poco esta mañana y pues la mesa de hoy con dos expertas, realmente es un lujo tenerlas aquí. Cooperación para el desarrollo de capacidades en estadísticas de género en el marco de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, sin duda es un elemento fundamental reflexionar sobre ello. El desafío que tenemos para contar con la información necesaria para monitorear los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible no puede darse sin la cooperación. Y la cooperación en todos sentidos, no solamente pensar en cómo financiar los trabajos, el desarrollo estadístico que necesitamos, sino también toda esta cooperación que este encuentro ha posibilitado en gran medida, poder compartir buenas prácticas, hacer uso de la comunicación, hacer uso de las tecnologías, las nuevas tecnologías, que nos permitan de alguna manera seguir tejiendo este engranaje, seguir abonando en esta retícula que hemos construido a lo largo de ya 17 años. Yo quiero aprovechar muy rápidamente el uso de la voz para agradecer nuevamente a las instituciones que hacen posible que estos encuentros se den, muy especialmente reconocer el trabajo arduo de quienes están detrás y que no vemos, y el esfuerzo y el despliegue que significa tener instituciones que trabajan conjuntamente para que este encuentro se dé. Es difícil siempre, yo que estuve por acá algún tiempo, es difícil siempre visibilizar ese trabajo interinstitucional. Hacer un encuentro de esta naturaleza no tiene ninguna complejidad, pero hacerlo interinstitucionalmente y con los resultados que se logran del encuentro, sí es un gran desafío, así es que felicidades a quienes hicieron posible que estemos aquí. Sin más preámbulo, entonces, vamos a dar inicio a la sesión con la presentación de la cooperación desde París 21, El-Iza Mohamedou, Directora Adjunta del Secretariado París 21, nos va a hacer una presentación virtual. Después contaremos con la presentación de Masako Hiraga, ¿pronuncié bien? Ella es Estadística Economista Senior en Género del Banco Mundial en Washington. Y me voy a permitir dar rápida lectura a la semblanza de El-Iza. Ella es Directora Adjunta del Secretariado en París 21, es responsable de los programas nacionales y regionales de apoyo del Secretariado. La señora Mohamedou tiene ya 19 años de experiencia internacional trabajando con instituciones financieras internacionales, organizaciones de la sociedad civil, comunidades, instituciones regionales, gobiernos, y cuenta con un doctorado en economía, con amplia experiencia que le ha dado este trabajo que ha desempeñado en el diseño y ejecución de proyectos multidisciplinarios, fortalecimiento institucional, evaluación de programas, estudios socioeconómicos y estudios de viabilidad. Una enorme experiencia que esperamos aprovechar con su presentación. Adelante, El-Iza.
Thank you. Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Good. Thank you. So I'll just ask the colleagues over here to just turn the slides. I wanted to look into this presentation, what was requested, which is look at where international cooperation on gender statistics stands today. Where do we stand? What is needed? Next slide, please. The key message is what I really wanted to get out of this interaction with you. And again, we apologize. I wanted to be in person in Mexico with you, but I am just renewing my passport. And unfortunately, I will only have it on Tuesday. So I'm not able to travel until Tuesday evening. So I would have missed this. So again, thanks for the organizers for organizing this Skype session. And I'll be available for questions as well at the end. And hopefully, in another event, we can then all meet in person. The key messages I wanted to bring out is that data, gender data is actually available. There is some data and quite a lot of it, but we definitely need more support in terms of what to get. And that support, I'll detail a little bit, is both financial but also technical, and that we have new opportunities as well arising from innovations. Next slide, please. So one of the things that has happened is that one good thing, at least we're sure of, is now gender is at least mainstreamed in discussions. It might not be mainstreamed in terms of data, but it's certainly mainstreamed in terms of discussions about gender statistics and the need for it. We need them for several reasons, and all of you are more experts on this than we are here at Paris 21, but certainly for measurement of poverty, certainly for measurement of inequality, education, health, labor market, and gender pay gap. These are all national development challenges that are important, for which we need gender statistics. We also need this for targeting group policy in general within the national development plans, but also for public policy evaluation. And one of the signs that gender statistics and gender data has been mainstreamed is actually the SDG process, because in all of these goals that you see, gender statistics is a main component of these goals in several targets, whether we're talking, of course, of goal number 5, which is really about gender equality, but also of goal number 1, 3, 4, 8, 10, 17. All of these have a very strong gender statistics component. So we can really talk about gender statistics now being mainstreamed. Next slide, please. So what I was mentioning is that data is available. There is one project that some of you might be familiar with which we were involved at Paris 21. That's the IHSN, the International Household Survey Network, with which we cooperated for several years with the World Bank, which studied how gender is measured in surveys, and it developed tools for better discovering existing gender data and measurement. And that is called the Gender Data Navigator. Anything, by the way, in my slides that is in color, in this orange color, is a direct link to the website. So hopefully the organizers will make the presentation available, and then you can, just by clicking on opening the PowerPoint and clicking on that, will take you directly to the IHSN Gender Data Navigator. And you will see how that has a lot of gender data in those household surveys. That's quite useful. And again, these household surveys have gender-based information for various sectors, including employment. Also, this is a priority area for national statistical offices. In particular, they have identified data dissemination and use rather than collecting new data as a priority area for statistical development in the next 5 years. We did a survey in 2015 of more than 30 national statistical offices, and this is what came out, where they said we actually have quite a lot of data that we would like to work more on data dissemination and use rather than constantly collecting new type of data, which is slightly difficult for us with our capacities and our existing resources to work on. So that, I think, is something important to keep in mind in your discussions during the conference. Next slide, please. So one thing that we want to do is to ensure sustainable gender statistics. And one way of doing that, because having only surveys is one thing, but one thing that we are pushing for is the integration of sector strategies in the national strategies for the development of statistics, what we call the NSDSs. And I've put up here some example of quite a few countries from Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. In most cases, these NSDSs include agriculture, labor, and gender statistics that guide countries in setting up their national statistical programs. So some countries are looking into gender as part of their national statistical, national strategies for the development of statistics. And that for us is really a sustainable way of ensuring that gender statistics are also included on a continuous basis. Next slide, please. So again, there is some support. There is one report that we here at Paris 21, we monitor on a yearly basis that is called the Partnership Report on Support to Statistics, the PRESS. It's also, again, available on the website. That's the orange link. This looks at the commitments that the main donors are giving to statistics. And what we've done ahead of your conference, we've looked at what the share of gender statistics in total investment in statistics. So this first slide you will see shows rather positive. Investment in gender statistics has increased. You see it ranges between 5% to 20% of all support to statistics is allocated to gender statistics. And these figures don't even include the $80 million Gates Foundation to close the gender gap that was announced as well. So that's in 2013. That's not a count as well. So that's looks like a good image. But if we move to the next slide, we see that it's actually not that positive, because all of this, the figures you have seen, not all of these projects are gender specific. Unfortunately, donors, when they report on support to statistics, provide the sum for the whole project. So that could be actually, and in some cases, it could be a food security, nutritional surveillance project. It could be a census, and they consider that includes a component on gender statistics, and that means the whole amount can actually be accounted for gender statistics. So that's an issue that we're trying to work with donors to actually dismantle, if you will, their support to statistics, so that we can really see what actually goes to statistics within a larger project, whether it's a census, it's a nutritional project, or even sometimes like the one in Tanzania was about improving business climate that had gender, green growth, HIV, AIDS, and human rights all in one project. The Bangladesh one, the first one, is on food security. So it's quite different. So the first thing is those projects are not all gender specific. The second thing is that even though it's 20% or 5 to 20%, depending on the year, of statistics given to gender, this is very little money, all of it. Statistics investment is less than $500,000, and we're talking about less than 0.2% of official development assistance that is going to statistics. So the whole pie, if you will, is actually a very small pie. It's really a little tiny cake that we're having on statistics, and out of this, you're getting gender statistics. So this shows, for example, this would mean on average, we're only talking about 40 million euros per year that is given to what would be this gender project. That's very little, because just to look at, for example, total support that was given in Indonesia in 2013 for all of its statistical system was $47 million. So you could see that in the whole world, globally, what is given to Indonesia in 1 year for statistics support is what is given in the whole world for gender statistics. That's really something that is problematic, and I think something that you might want to look as well and discuss at some point in terms of support to statistics, and that's the caveat. So the next slide, please. We see, though, opportunities, because I'm not planning to really spoil your morning with bad news. So there are some good news, and the good news is the data revolution and innovation. And again, I put here 2 links of just 2 examples because of time. I can't go into that many. You have the Wired Mothers example, for example, that's a joint project of the University of Copenhagen and the Ministry of Health in Zanzibar, which is looking at the use of mobile phones for healthcare on maternal and neonatal morbidity and mortality. And it seeks innovative ways of ensuring access to skilled attendance at delivery. One of the issues really sort of assistant births, as you know. The second one is M for Change as well. You click on the link and you'll see more details on the project. It's also, this is a project in Nigeria with Pathfinder International about also improving the quality of maternal and child health services through a public-private partnership to scale up, and it uses mobile money as well for health projects. So there are some cases of innovation, public-private partnerships that we're trying to look into getting also new data on gender, but also getting more frequent data, more real-time data on gender, and that's very important. We can't always wait 5 years until we have the results of a survey to advance on our gender statistics. Next slide, please. The other big opportunity, and this is really something that is very important for us here at Paris 21, is to continuously call for civil registration vital statistics improvement. Surveys are fine, but what we're looking at is really improving registers and administrative data sources. That's important for the availability and the quality of gender and labor statistics, for example. Another thing is that administrative data is currently really underdeveloped compared to surveys. This is a strong call that we'd like to make on for capacity building at both the national, regional, and international levels on this case. Next slide, please. So what's next? This is my last slide. It's challenges and perspectives. One couple of things I've added also that don't appear on the slide, thinking about it last night, is one, of course, is improving coordination within the national statistical system and with donors and partners. This is really important. There's still a lot of room for improvement on that. The second is increasing resources. Again, going back to the first slide I was presenting, there has been some gains in the frequency and quality of censuses and household surveys over the past 30 years or so, but the building blocks of national statistical systems remain weak. We have to invest more in the national statistical systems. We'd like also to look at new areas, and that's the new indicators. We look at new areas and increase the coverage and development of new indicators to measure gender. So here, ICT, digital economy, entrepreneurship, all of these are areas where we think that innovation can come in. We're in discussions with several partners trying to have pilots as well. Getting data from alternative data sources is important, as long as there is clarity of partnership with the national statistical offices. And also, maybe a last point I didn't add here is data literacy. Because no matter what the slogans say, data doesn't speak for itself. Data is the first crucial step, but you need smart, objective analysis to make sense of the data and shape the narrative so that decision makers and citizens will increasingly demand relevant information to lay the foundation for policy making and budgeting. So for us, maybe a fourth point, I didn't put this here, is also looking into data literacy. We shouldn't be only calling for more data, we also should be calling for a better understanding of that data towards actually some use of that data that makes sense for everyone and advances the national and regional development. That's it, last slide. And I'm here if there are any questions and hopefully some discussions as well. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Isa, y muchas gracias por cumplir con los tiempos. Pues ha planteado nuestra ponente algunos temas que creo que van a ser motivo de mucho comentario y debate. Hemos desarrollado nuestras estadísticas mucho en función de lo que permiten avanzar las encuestas que han puesto en la agenda el tema de las estadísticas de género. Tenemos un enorme desafío sin duda, y en eso coincidimos, en avanzar en los temas que tienen que ver con registro administrativo. Los registros administrativos sin duda son la posibilidad de hacer un zoom, de llegar al territorio como no lo permiten las encuestas. Y para hacer política pública necesitamos también conocer en detalle nuestras poblaciones, de manera pues que los registros administrativos también tienen que conectarse con estos cambios, con la innovación, con la necesidad de tener nuevos indicadores, y para esto la cooperación sin duda va a ser muy importante si queremos avanzar en el monitoreo de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible. Vamos a darle la palabra ahora a Masako Hiraga. Ella es la estadística principal, economista del Grupo de Datos de Desarrollo del Banco Mundial. Ha trabajado en la recopilación, análisis y difusión de datos sociodemográficos. Ahora se enfoca en los datos de género y sin duda su trabajo desde el Banco Mundial pues va a ser muy importante para ayudar en esto que llamamos la cooperación para el desarrollo de capacidades en estadísticas de género. Adelante, por favor.
Thank you very much. I'm Masako Hiraga from the World Bank, and I am actually here on behalf of Karen Guron, who is the Senior Director of the Gender Group at the World Bank, and who really wanted to be here but couldn't, unfortunately, because of the schedule conflict. And also, I want to apologize for my voice. I've been having a problem with my voice, and so I will try to keep my presentation short, so you don't have to keep hearing my squeaky voice the first thing in the morning. So I'm here to present the World Bank's contribution to improve gender statistics. Let's see if I can make this work. Here we go. I heard last 2 days of discussion, and presentation has been really interesting, and I think the first couple of the slides that I have has been already covered. So I will relatively go quickly, but SDGs, big challenges. 17 goals, 169 target, 230 indicators, and there are, I think you discussed about the tier system of the SDGs. So there, as you can see, the majority of them are tier 2 and tier 3 indicators. When you look at the SDG 5, the gender goal, the picture is the same. Majority is tier 2 and tier 3 indicators, and there are, as El-Iza mentioned already, that there are many gender-relevant indicators outside the SDG 5. Tier 2 and Tier 3 indicators will require the methodological work, piloting, training, technical assistance, harmonization, adaptation. So it's a big challenge, and of course, the collaboration and cooperation is a must to make it a success. SDG brings a lot of opportunities as well. Compared to the MDGs, SDG highlight the importance of country ownership, and countries can prioritize according to the country's specific need and the priorities, which is a good thing, so the countries are in the driving seat. And disaggregation is emphasized, which is, again, the great news for the gender statistics. And there are a broader range of stakeholders and partners are involved in SDG. So these are new partners and will bring the new ways to collaborate, new ways to measure, new technologies, which will lead to the innovations. And a lot of players are partners So hope there is a possibility to have more resources, not only finance, but the human resources, knowledge resources, technical resources. So there are opportunities, but there's a but. Flip side of it could be a challenge as well. For example, it could be difficult to manage all this different set of priorities and many players in the SDG system. Also, I think the most challenging thing is the time. We only have up till 2030. And we all know the statistics development, by the time you see the result, it takes time. And we only have less than 15 years to do that. So World Bank Group believe and support the importance of the cooperation, and we try to bring a value where we think we have a comparative advantages. For this, the World Bank came up with the gender strategy less than a year ago, and this emphasizes the importance of the statistics for gender development. And in here, we state that next couple of years, we will try to focus on the economic empowerment of women, because we think the World Bank has a relative advantage, comparative advantage in this area, especially in relation to the corporate goal of eliminating the poverty. With this focus, we work in different areas that listed there that I will touch in coming slides. So statistical capacity building project. World Bank Group finance and support statistical capacity building project. They are large-scale projects which work with the whole statistical systems of the countries, including legal systems, infrastructure, and longer-term plans, the NSDS, which the El-Iza already mentioned, and covering the whole set of topics. There are also much more smaller scale projects, statistical projects funded by the Trust Fund for Statistical Capacity Building called TFSCB, which focus more on the specific areas on capacity building, such as analysis of surveys or producing the actual NSDS, stuff like that. As you know, usually the statistical capacity building project doesn't always prioritize gender. But I do think it's okay as long as gender is incorporated in the systems, and the opportunities to improve gender is not lost in those big statistical systems. We also think methodological work is important, especially for the Tier 3 indicators. So for this is one example of the cooperation that we do with other partners. We partner with EDGE, Evidence and Data for Gender Equality initiative managed by UNSD, UN Statistics Division, and the UN Women to gather and analyze individual level data on asset ownership and entrepreneurship. For this, the World Bank conducted an experiment by asking the same question to a different set of respondents and assessed how respondent selection impacted the data. Based on this, there are 8 pilot data collection is being conducted. I know Mexico was one of them. Some of them was already conducted, some of them is ongoing right now. And eventually, all these findings from the pilot data collection will be the guidelines to collect the data of asset ownership and control at the individual level, which will be prepared by the EDGE initiative. I do believe this will be a great resource for us to collect this area of data, because right now it is missing from gender perspective. Another example of collaboration for the methodological work. We also partner with the Data2X to measure the new definition of employment by ICLS, the International Conference of Labor Statisticians. The important change of the new ICLS in gender perspective is that the work performed for own use, often performed by women, is now not considered as employment. So we are trying to pilot how well we could distinguish this work, which is not considered employment now, and the employment work, which is the work performed for sale, how we can distinguish it in surveys. This work is very much ongoing, and again, in collaboration, we are working with ILO and FAO to come up with the sort of new way to do this. We also do the data collection. We have the surveys called Living Standard Measurement Studies that maybe I didn't emphasize in my collaboration methodological work part, but the experiment on asset ownership was done using one of the LSMS surveys in Uganda. So LSMS collect the data, work with the countries to collect the data in surveys, but in addition to collecting the data, we try to do the methodological work and pilot the new tools so we can find the new ways, better ways to collect the data in surveys. And also, because we work really closely with countries, there's a big component of the capacity building in the country, in the statistical office. We also collect the data on law and regulations for women's entrepreneurship and employment. Legal data is one of the SDG 5, and we think this information, this data is useful for measuring these areas of data which doesn't exist so much. The law and regulations data is published in Women, Business, and the Law, and we have 3 revisions, and we are working on the next version right now. We also collect the data for financial access and use by sex in collaboration with the Gallup World Poll to provide in-depth data on how individuals save, borrow, make payment, and manage risks. In enterprise surveys for gender, we collect data for women's participation in firm ownership, management, and employment. As El-Iza mentioned, we believe the data is useful. Data has to be used to make a difference. And for this, in order to foster the data use and analysis, we compile all these gender-relevant data and publish it in the Gender Data Portal. This is the website. And we actually did the big revamp this year, and we are quite proud of it, for the easy access to the good data and easy navigation, and also for the quick analysis, we have data visualization. And also, one of the area that I am proud of, and I think you find interesting, is the module called Filling the Data Gaps. I'm not going to go there, but all this methodological work that I mentioned is in there, as well as we have quick visuals to see where the data gaps exist. The International Household Survey Network, again, that El-Iza already mentioned, and that's great, but this is the collection of surveys and indicators which will give you the access to the survey information as well as the data when there is available. And this is the result of the big collaboration, including the Paris 21, but also other organizations such as ILO, FAO, WHO, UNESCO Institute for Statistics, UNICEF. I'm sure I'm forgetting all that, but all those, the organizations who has the surveys, who contribute to that. Gender Data Navigator, one of the project for gender under IHSN. Again, that El-Iza mentioned, I'm quite happy. What we did is that we moved this collection of the surveys one step further. And for gender, we made the tool so you can choose surveys according to what kind of questions are asked in the surveys. To do this, we had a group of staff reviewing the existing surveys to see what kind of gender-relevant questions are asked. And then we compiled it in the tool called the Gender Data Navigator. I hope you find this useful for your analysis. And innovation. We are also starting to fund innovative approaches for data collection and collaboration. For this, we partner with the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data, GPSDD, to reach out to non-traditional partners, including private sectors, NGOs, civil societies, academias, to gather the experience of what kind of innovative work can be done to collect the data. I think this work is just starting, so I don't know what kind of result will come, but I'm quite excited that we have this initiative. We also have Gender Innovation Lab, which is the collection of the impact evaluations to test innovative approaches to improve gender equality. The lessons learned from these innovative approaches is compiled in this website called Gender Innovation Lab, accompanied by the impact evaluation data. So in my presentation, I try to focus the collaboration that we are involved with, but I'm sure I didn't cover all of them. For example, the interagency and expert group for gender statistics managed by UNSD, UN Statistics Division, which we are an active partner of. And we mentioned Edge, Data 2X, we have no ceilings. So I think the message is that we have a lot of challenges, but with the collaboration, without collaborations, I don't think we can make it happen. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Masako. Ok, muchas gracias. Bueno, pues sin duda se han planteado aquí una serie de cuestiones que nos invitan a la reflexión. Ahora que escuchaba a Masako, me recordé cuando iniciamos estos encuentros y discutíamos sobre la necesidad de tener la información desagregada por sexo. Era algo que hace 20 años teníamos que exigirle a las fuentes estadísticas. Sin duda estos avances que se presentan y estas iniciativas novedosas serán muy importantes para el monitoreo de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. Pero déjenme plantear, para iniciar el diálogo, dos cuestiones que creo que estamos en el momento de poder abordar desde una perspectiva mucho más futurista, dijéramoslo de esa manera, en el sentido de que la transformación que está sufriendo la estadística gracias a la tecnología, gracias a los avances y la experiencia que podemos compartir entre países, pues también nos plantea algunos desafíos que creo que tenemos que abordar. Cada vez más vemos portales de género, cada vez más tenemos publicaciones de estadísticas de género. Y aquí el planteamiento de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, y aquí se ha señalado, los indicadores, no todos los indicadores que están visualizados como transversales en los objetivos, tienen esa fortaleza que desde la perspectiva de género estamos buscando. Esto es algo que ya se empieza a discutir. Efectivamente, muchos indicadores se plantearon para ver la transversalidad en los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, pero no necesariamente tienen esa fortaleza que necesitamos para hacer los análisis y el monitoreo, y por eso muchos países se están planteando indicadores complementarios. En ese sentido, creo que que uno de los desafíos que tenemos enfrente es ya incluir en otros portales, en otras, en publicaciones que normalmente son las que miran quienes toman decisiones, esta perspectiva, porque seguimos estando en nichos en donde nos leemos quienes tenemos el interés, pero no logramos transversalizar esa comunicación que debemos hacer a las esferas de la política en donde queremos realmente incidir. Y eso creo que puede hacerse, estamos en un buen momento y la cooperación puede ir también mucho en ese sentido. Muy bienvenidos todos los portales porque todas estas iniciativas también de recoger información, pero lo que es muy importante es la incidencia en esa mirada de quienes toman decisiones y que muchas veces nos cuesta mucho trabajo que abreven de la información que se está produciendo en materia de género. Entonces, dicho esto, abrimos la discusión, los comentarios, y yo voy a tomar los nombres. Vamos a tomar unas rondas de 5 en 5, si les parece, espero que no. Y algo que sí les quiero pedir, que me insistieron mucho las organizadoras, es que sean breves para dar paso a más participaciones, que busquemos que sean directo a lo que van para no quitarle la oportunidad a otros y otras participantes. Entonces, por acá, después allá, acá hay otra solicitud.
Thank you.
Y acá, okay.
I don't know
Sí.
whether to speak in English or in Spanish. I'd like to congratulate both presenters for great presentations, right to the point, a lot of topics to discussion, and I agree completely with them. But I would like to add that the funding part is there at the moment. We have very little funding for statistics in general, even less for gender statistics, but we have even less for this region. Most of that funding goes worldwide, doesn't come to this region. It's mainly funding to Africa and a lot more to, and some to Asia, but we have, or at least myself, sorry, I didn't present myself, I'm Veronica Boero from FAO. In FAO, I have a lot of trouble getting funding for this region. It's a lot of for Africa, some for Asia, and very little for here. Because many of our countries are considered middle income, so everybody thinks funding is not necessary. And in that part, apart from getting funding from donors to this region, we need to do advocacy with governments, because governments need to invest in statistics. That's primary, that's crucial. If they don't invest in statistics, we are dead, because with donors only we can improve the statistical systems. And in improving the statistical systems, we have to ensure that the statistics have a gender perspective. I wouldn't argue to improve gender statistics. I would argue to improve statistics with a gender perspective. And that's my comments. Thank you.
Gracias. Si te
Thank you.
presentas, por favor.
Gabriela Borowski, I'm with the Policy Division at UN Women. Thank you very much for the presentation. I just wanted to say that I think the message about cooperation and collaboration being a must with the SDGs is very important, very key. And just to share an example of how UN Women and the World Bank Group are collaborating, SDG Indicator 511, which is whether or not legal frameworks are in place to promote, enforce, and monitor equality and non-discrimination on the basis of sex. As you can imagine, this is a Tier 3 indicator for which no guidelines have been done. But a good example of cooperation is the Women, Business and the Law project at the World Bank and UN Women are working together along with OECD Social Institution and Gender Index, because Women, Business and the Law and the SIGI Index are already collecting a lot of information through legal reviews and through their composite kind of scoring of different countries. So this is an example where we don't need to recreate or reinvent a methodology, but we can join forces, add additional questions to the survey that the World Bank is already doing in order to join forces. So just to share an example of this kind of cooperation.
Gracias. ¿Alguien más? Allá, sí. Carlos.
Thanks, Carlos Echarri from UN Women. It's very important to have all these databases, but the problem that we face when we're looking for data or indicators is that, sorry, that sometimes the data is not updated or is wrong. And I will kindly suggest to work with either the Statistical Commission of the Americas or other regional bodies to keep it updated. And we also face the problem in countries like Mexico or Brazil or Venezuela, where is a federal republic, that it doesn't adequately shows the complexity of federal states. So you have to devise a way to either expand it or put some caveats on your presentations. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Carlos. ¿Alguien más? Bueno, pues si no hay más preguntas, quizá las organizadoras por ahí nos dirán si el receso es ya y la fotografía después. ¿Se hace un receso?
Gracias. No, ahorita no sé si vayan a contestar Masako, el-Iza, y se puede abrir otra ronda por si tuvieran preguntas y si no pasamos al receso.
Entendí, si hay alguna pregunta, si quieren responder, no sé si está todavía en línea. Sí, sí está. Si quieren dar alguna respuesta, no hay preguntas así muy concretas, pero creo que se puede hacer un comentario global. Hay más preguntas, sí. Sí, acá. Gracias.
Thanks, Tom. Jo Crawford from International Women's Development Agency in Australia. My question, if El-Iza is still online, well, perhaps more a comment than a question, is really to affirm the challenge that is faced for data users by the way in which donors are currently able to report their gender spend. It's a significant issue in Australia, and I think it's very important for Paris 21 and for the World Bank to really play a leadership role here on the accuracy of what is reported, because when you report the value of an entire project, let's say it's 50 million, but you're not tracking how in a budgeted way, how gender is integrated, it is an entirely misleading set of figures in relation to the total quantum of funding that is invested in gender. So it's really just, I guess, a plea to some of the international institutions for the really important leadership role that you can play in terms of the guidelines that are required of donors, because in Australia, when my organisation continues to raise this as a challenge and that it is misleading, they say, oh, well, that's how the OECD asks us to report. So for those of us who are wanting improved accountability and transparency on expenditure, the leadership of the international institutions, as well as the doing of the stuff, the guidance that you provide to donors can be a really helpful reinforcement. Thanks.
Gracias. Quizá Isa, ¿puede tomar la palabra? ¿Está en línea? ¿Nos estás escuchando, Isa? Creo que no está escuchando. Si nos ayudan allá con la conexión. Sí, ¿no? Vamos a darle la palabra mientras se conectan a Masako.
Sure. While the connection is being connected, I can talk at so much for the comment. I do completely agree with all those comments. And then I'm sorry that I should have highlighted that our work with the UN Women, the Women, Business and the Law, and the CIGI of the OECD to come up with sort of to fill that data gap for the 5.1.1. And that's another example of the collaboration that we are trying to do, because to bring the comparative advantage together so we can come up with the one common message. And I do think, Maria, that you mentioned that we owe to ourselves that we have all these data, but we are not a bunch of statisticians not good at telling the story using the data. And I think if we are better at it, maybe the politicians will be able to understand and observe the information better. World Bank, or we, really recognize that too. The gender data portal, we try to be friendly, but it's to the limit that maybe it's not the way that it's really easy for everyone, non-statisticians, to understand. We are starting to sort of crack into it, to work on the so-called data journalism using the gender statistics. And I know we don't have a good skills or knowledge, but we are trying to work with those data scientists and data journalism to use the data in the gender data portal to tell the story that's observable to a lot of people. So you'll be one of the first to know that we are trying to come up with this. Maybe it's going to be the website, maybe it's going to be different form, but we are starting to do this again with collaboration with Gates Foundation and other big the big group of partners. So stay tuned. Hopefully we'll do a good job for this.
Muchas gracias. Pues creo que ya está conectada Isa. Perfecto.
Yes, apologies. I didn't hear all the questions I have to say, but I wanted to come back to a couple of points that I managed to hear. One was Veronica's point from the FAO, which is the challenge of funding. I think in particular for this region, I think one of the issues and that we are working on, and hopefully we can find some partners as well to work on this, and maybe the FAO is, we're looking into the Inter-American Development Bank in terms of research, is that we want to show, and we've shown this already in a few indicators, that economic and social development doesn't necessarily correlate with the availability and the use of data. We should separate the two issues. Having data is not always the case of advanced countries. And some countries that are less developed in Africa, for example, compared to your region, have more data, make it more available on a more regular basis than some other countries. So it really should separate the two issues, I think, and that's something that we should highlight a little bit more in terms of advocacy, being there's no correlation really between GDP growth and data, if you will, development. That's something that we should separate. In terms of of course, I fully agree with the issue of national statistical systems being funded by domestic resources. That's essential. We're still far from being there. The level of, one of the things we're monitoring as well is what we call the country report. I was mentioning about the press. The CRESS is the country report on support to statistics. And there again, the level, the percentage of statistical operations funded by national governments is to a really dismal level. It's extremely low. The countries are not able to fund with the budget they are making available to the national statistical offices and some of their line ministries, sector ministries, not able to fund the part production of core statistics. And that should really be also at the heart of the advocacy we're doing. I didn't understand, I have to say, the question from Australia. Unfortunately, I can't really hear from the floor. If that, I think it was addressed to Paris 21. Happy to answer it if it's repeated. There was the issue of making more data available. One thing maybe I'd like to caution is we're talking a lot, in particular now with the discussions around SDGs, about data portals. And we've done some research as well on the availability of data portals, and it's an issue. There's a proliferation of data portals. We don't have enough measurement on the use of that data, so there's a bit of a dichotomy between the open agenda, open data agenda, and actually the use of the data. There's really a lot of data portals. So if we are pushing for new ones, let's please think really cautiously what that means. It's a lot of cost, and it's a lot of time and resources for national statistical systems to populate them, to maintain them, to be trained in the use of those portals, and ultimately for these portals to actually produce data that is used and understood. So let's be a little bit, it's good to have more data, but let's try to work a little bit more on how we disseminate the data, not just through additional data portals, if possible. So that's just a few. And again, apologies because I couldn't hear all the questions. I can hear the two speakers very well, but not the floor, unfortunately. So let me know if there's anything else might have missed. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Si hay algún comentario adicional sobre las dos intervenciones, ¿alguien que quiera agregar algo? Si no es así, entonces pues damos un receso. ¿Sí?
Muchas gracias, Paz. ¿Está abierto el sonido? ¿Listo? Ya. Muchas gracias, Paz. Gracias a las ponentes también. Bien, queremos comentarles, como ustedes saben, los aviones y los aeropuertos y todo esto siempre hay inconvenientes. Tenemos un retraso de entre 20 y 30 minutos para la llegada de la canciller. Sin embargo, quiero, darles dos anuncios. La escalera de la fotografía se cambió porque el sol en este momento está dando de frente, entonces se tomó la fotografía el primer día del encuentro. Entonces se va a tomar la fotografía en la escalera de este lado. Ustedes van a ver que ahí están ya los fotógrafos, unas sombrillas ahí para mejorar la iluminación. No hay manera de perdernos. Les pido su paciencia, por favor. No hay servicio de café, pero sí les espera que no se dispersen. Sin embargo, tenemos, les repito, unos 20 minutos, 30 máximo. Si quieren ir al tocador para ponernos guapos para la fotografía, si quieren estirar las piernas, como decimos en México. Sí, maestro Vélez.